Hi, it's Nikki Howard here, and I've had quite a few requests after seeing my bottles how I actually paint them. And I've done a previous video on this, and I thought I'd do another one because obviously techniques and ideas evolve over time. So I've grabbed a bottle, and as you can see it's got a sticker label on it, and that doesn't really matter because we're going to be sticking over it anyway. And what I used to do was to put a coat of like gesso or something like PVA glue to give the bottle a surface to paint on. However, I didn't always find that very efficient. I found it actually really hard because sometimes I'd be painting and the paint would start to come off again, and it got a bit of a pain. And I would use things like tissue paper, etc. later on in the process. I thought, well, why don't I do that as a first layer? So I'm going to be coating this bottle with layers of paper. So I've often used kitchen roll that I split. This kitchen roll has 3 layers in it, so split it into the different layers, otherwise it can have a detrimental effect later on because your layers will start to separate once you've painted them. And I quite like this kitchen paper because of the texture on it. I also use things like normal tissue paper. Colour doesn't matter because it's going to get painted over anyway. I also use this type of paper as well that has like a fibre in it, and I really like this because once you rip it, the edges are so soft and subtle that you don't get that edge if there's no way you don't want to be having any cover. It just gives a much softer line to it. I quite like that. And I also I started using bandages as well, which is really great because it gives a really nice effect. So this was an old bandage that, you know, I'd used because I'd hurt myself and I was about to throw it away. I thought, no, I can actually reuse this. So this gives a really nice, unusual texture. In actual fact, I had a client who did one, and that's the texture it gives. So quite a rough texture, and it's really, I think it's a really nice contrast. And I also use these little veggie bags that we get our fruit and veg in. And these are brilliant because obviously they're not the ones I buy, they're the ones you buy the fruit and veg and they're already in there. So these are absolutely brilliant textures. For example, here's one I'm in the middle of painting, and you can see the texture all round. It's really fun to work with. There's also plastic ones, but I actually find these harder because they don't stick so well, but they do work. And I think that's mainly it for now on texture. There's also like different painting techniques you can use to bring in the texture, which I'll probably show as well. So let's get going. So the glue I've been using the things used for Deco Patch. So like I think it's I can't even remember in English now. Like it's type of a glue and a varnish together. I do have a normal like clear glue, which was used like for children and stuff, but I don't actually like that as much. There's another one. It's mixed in, but it's a clear glue. So that's like a normal glue, which you can also use, which is actually really good for things like the plastic that doesn't stick very well. I'm also going to be looking at possibly sticking clay on the bottles. So that's going to be another experiment to do. So I'm going to do with the kitchen roll. So if you're never done Deco Patch before, the idea is just to rip, because you don't want any hard lines, and then paint the glass first, stick on it, and then paint the glue on top. And what I tend to do as well is also roughen up the surfaces, and you can give a good go of glue on the top. And you know, it's brilliant because you don't have to be exact. You can overlap, you can, you know, make folds and creases. anything goes with this type of sticking. So I tend to use a variety of materials on one bottle because obviously you get the different play on the textures. As you can see, yeah, it's really not exact, it's just really going with the flow, which is just how I like to paint. And it's nice just to play around with the texture. I don't like to be exact and ordered when I'm doing this. It's just very random of what I feel, of where I want the type of paper to be. And the bumpier the texture, the better. So if you can bring folds in there, it's really nice for the paint afterwards. And as you can see, you know, it goes really quick. And you actually start seeing all sorts of things around your house that you can start using for texture. I've actually obviously got quite addicted to collecting bottles, but then, you know, you start seeing what has texture around your house and adding it into your box of possible textures. Now these up. You can use newspaper. I've tried with brown paper, but brown paper is really thick, so it doesn't always work so well. But try it, you know, try anything that's laying around your house that you could add different fibres. I actually thought about using felting wool. And that came up in a conversation yesterday talking about felting. I thought, ooh, that could be interesting on the bottle as well. I tend to do the neck after, because obviously you're moving it around, you're turning it, and I've tried, I do the neck with the paper, but if you're doing it while you're doing all this lot, the paper just starts coming off, and it's a nightmare really. So I tend to do the bottom and the top after I've done the rest of the bottle and just blend it in with the paint. I tend to, yeah, paint first and then I'll attack the top and bottom once I've done the body of the bottle. Right, I'm just going to pause the video and I'm going to just dry with the hairdryer. It's just like there's no point you having a load of noise on here. So I'm just going to dry it now with the hairdryer. And be careful when you're drying with the hairdryer, because obviously the paper you've just had out everywhere just gets blown all across the room, which is what's just happened to me. So I've just noticed there's a few holes I want to cover. Oh, I just spun you around. Sorry about that. I'm just going over any bits I saw sticking up that hadn't been stuck down properly. So when you've done that, what I'd like to do then is to get some of these netting. I can just find my scissors. And then again with this, and I love this because it's stretchy, so you can stretch it into different forms. It's probably a little bit thin, but it doesn't matter because we can play around with it. And then it's just a case of just placing it on and sticking it. So once again, allow folds, allow moments where it's going to just all knot together, because that creates such incredible texture on the bottle. I almost dipped my brush in my drinking water. I think a lot of you are probably very familiar with that situation. So you want actually find that too much. I want to just, and it's really nice because you can really play around with it. And what I found is that obviously once you paint it, it just comes to life. You start seeing shapes in it. So just, you know, you don't need to be exact. And obviously with this, it's so much easier when if you're doing the plastic. If I just show you, as I've been talking about it, the plastic tends to be, oh, this isn't too bad actually, probably because I've used a smaller piece, but it can be really hard to stick down. So that's where I tend to use my other glue, but it's not so, it's just a bit more fiddly really, but it still works. And there we go. So I'm going to use this clear glue, which is just a little bit stronger. And it doesn't matter if little bits are sticking up, because it will flatten down eventually with the paint. But it's just... it's kind of thing of once you've got one edge down, the other end pops up. I should pull that from out of there. And what I tend to, because I don't like straight lines, so I might either cover later on with a piece of tissue across here. I can actually do that now. Which has the dual effect of obviously sticking down the edge, but it also just takes away that straight line. You can also add things like texture paint, or use my palette knife to build up paint around the edge. It's just hiding that. Right, so once again I'm going to dry the bottle, so I will just pause you for a moment. So I have just finished drying the bottle. What I might do with this is just do a little bit more around the base. As I've just noticed, yeah, there's quite a gap, and it's not always easy to see when you have obviously the bottle that curves in. It's not always easy to see the gap at the base. And obviously I tend to do the bottom very last of all when I've painted the rest of the bottle, because I don't want it to be like coming off and rubbing off when I'm actually working on the bottle. And I tend to paint the base of mine, I paint them all in like in a golden or bronze, just a very basic colour, just to give it a little finishing touch. And I think what I'll do, I will leave this video just with the texture, and I will do a follow-up video of painting it, and then you can see the different stages. Well, there goes not a bottle, but my drinking glass. So there we go, that is the basic texture. So I'm going to do another video after to show the actual paint effects, but for those who've never seen my work, I just want to show you a glimpse of what like a finished bottle can look like. So here is one already finished, and you can see where like the netting has created this incredible effect. And then you obviously got areas of the smoother areas where there is folds of paper. This is actually a piece of, actually crunch up a bit of paper that has roses on it that I've just cut out. So that has been placed. And so you can see the actual effects of the before that looks a total mess. And then the after one, and again I still have the bottom to paint on this. So that's what I shall be aiming for in the next video. And look at this, I mean this is just the edge of a cut-off piece, I think, of the netting, and it just creates the most gorgeous, it just look, for me it just looks like, you know, plants, and it's beautiful. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helps for you to have a go at doing it yourself. So have a look around your house and see what textures you can find, and just start collecting them. I mean, I've got a whole box of all sorts of papers in here that I just, you know, collect over time and see and play with. See you on the other side.